Hi there. I'm a Canadian, and I would like to put to rest this nonsense that the United States President, Donald Trump, has been promoting about turning Canada into the 51st state. First of all, that demonstrates his ignorance about Canada and also his ignorance about his own government. Let me explain. Canada is not one mass, not one homogeneous group. It is a mosaic. It is comprised of 10 provinces and 3 territories. We have one province that speaks French. We have one group of provinces that are maritime. We have prairie provinces. We have the Inuit territory, which is run by the indigenous population. And we have British Columbia, which is equivalent to the United States state of California in its diversity and its liberal thinking. So this is not going to become one state. If in some fantastical reality the United States offers 10 statehoods, let me show you what the impact of that will be. First of all, 10 statehoods under your U.S. law would require representation. So that means that in your House of Representatives, currently your Congress, your constitutional law, requires the number to be set at 435. Some of your states have more representations or more seats than others. Those states would have to give up their seats to give to the Canadian states, okay? And I don't think that's going to be popular. In addition, in the Senate of the United States government, each state is allowed 2 representatives. So when Canada becomes 10 states, it will get 20 representatives in the Senate. Now, if you have any understanding of Canadians, you would know that they tend to lean towards more liberal viewpoints, which means they would align or create a coalition with your Democratic Party, which is much more open-minded, let's say. And that would create a power shift in your government, both in the House and in the Senate. The coalition of Canadian states with the Democratic Party would make the Democratic Party a powerhouse and control your government. If that takes place in this fantastical reality that I'm talking about, then Canadians would push for the first legislation to be the impeachment of Donald Trump. Why? Because Canadians do not believe that a convicted felon, a convicted sexual offender, and basically Vladimir Putin's butt boy has the right to be president of a country. And we would impeach him because we would have the power to do so once we co-align with the Democratic Party. Then, and we'd also get rid of Vance. That Jay-Z Vance is just obnoxious. Now, the next thing we would do is we would arrest Elon Musk. We'd put criminal actions against him because, one, he's been demonstrated on video trying to purchase votes. Now, you may argue that he was just offering people money to vote, but he was doing it in alignment with the Trump campaign. Connect the dots. So that would be the argument to arrest him. In addition, Elon Musk has never been vetted. He has never gone through the proper channels of federal hiring. He has no security clearance whatsoever, and yet he is in the government having access to all sorts of private and security information. Canadians wouldn't tolerate that. So we would move to definitely get him out of there and get him arrested. He's almost a domestic terrorist in that regard. Secondly, Musk has brought in a group of teeny boppers, young kids who are, again, not hired through proper channels, not vetted, have no security clearance, and yet these kids are running amok through the agencies that have sensitive information regarding U.S. citizens, private information. That, again, is something Canadians would not tolerate. So we kick those little kids out, maybe arrest them, although they're kids and they're stupid, so they don't know what they're doing. So that would be our first point of action: impeachment of Donald Trump and arrest of Elon Musk. Okay, after that, what would we do? Well, we would implement universal health care. Now, this would be on a federal level, so it would protect the rights. In addition to providing free healthcare, it would protect the rights of all the women of the United States. That means that they would have their own bodily autonomy guaranteed. This nonsense that the United States government has, particularly in some of your states, where women are somehow a second class citizen and they get to be manipulated and controlled, we don't tolerate that in Canada. We think of women as being equal members of society and citizens with the rights and protections of citizens. So that would be our second step. The third thing we do is we reform your campaign process. For some unbelievably stupid idea that was set back in the 1800s, your campaigning period goes for a year or more. This is the 21st century. No longer does a candidate get on a horseback and go from town to town to campaign. We now have social media, we have television, and we can have candidates flying from one side of the continent to the other in a matter of hours. They do not need a year-long period in which to campaign. We would compress it to between 37 and 50 days. That's sufficient for campaigning, and if they can't get their ideas across in that period of time, then they're not very good candidates. The other thing, in addition to that, we would set a ceiling for campaign contributions. We have that law in Canada, and we would implement that law in the United States as well. There is no buying and selling of candidates by fat, rich white guys anymore. We would set the ceiling, and we would also tighten up the reporting of where those campaign contributions actually go. No more funneling them off into a private bank account in the Bahamas. It's okay? So that's the third thing we would do, or the fourth. The other thing we would do is we would regulate your banks. We would tighten up the regulations of your banks. I don't know if you, as a United States citizen, realize it, but you were responsible. Your unregulated stock market was responsible for the 1929 depression. Also, in 2008, your unregulated mortgage market almost caused another depression because you have this stupid idea that somehow business will regulate itself. It won't. People are greedy and they're going to do whatever they want to get money. And that's true for corporations. And so they have to be regulated. It's like putting a dog on a leash, okay? So we would regulate your banking because during the 2008 fiasco that you created, it was the Canadian banks that were stabilized because we had great regulations. We would also regulate your stock market so you don't have this, free for all or like this Ponzi scheme going with your stocks. Okay, that's the other thing we would do. Also, let's see. We probably would need to implement that all your legislation would be written and spoken in both French and English, because you are absorbing Quebec and and New Brunswick. So, in order to respect that culture, you will need to speak both in French and English and write your legislation in both French and English. Don't mess with the Quebecois. No. Anyway, let's see what else. Oh, and lastly, but not, and this is a kind of diversion. It's not really regarding what we would do, but we would respect other countries. And in that regard, let me give you the definition of a gulf. A gulf is a body of water that is surrounded by a landmass, and it has a small outlet. And that landmass is usually what names the gulf. In other words, the Gulf of Mexico is surrounded by Mexico, therefore it is the Gulf of Mexico. So let me clarify. You are not Americans. You are members of the United States of the continent of North America. I don't know why you usurped the American term, but everybody on this continent is American. We're North American, Central American, or South American. Now, you seem to believe that you have the right to take over any term or anything you want. No, Canadians will moderate that because we have respect for others. So you're the United States of America, and you should refer to yourself as USers from now on, or in the term, or in the case of Donald Trump, a user. So we'll clarify that because you need to know your words and what they mean. And obviously, your educational system needs to be improved in that regard. So, those are the changes that making Canada a part of the United States will take place. Do you want that, Donald Trump? Hmm? Thank you for your time. Bye.